Paula P. Works here, back like we never left, coming to you once again with One Piece chapter 1108 entitled Attention World. So, here's the thing. Doll is going to be the thumbnail this week for sure, because we get all the name drops for all the Vice Admirals we've been seeing. Okay, so we were introduced to Red King last chapter. He's the long neck guy. Then the guy who has the axe in his head is Vice Admiral Guillotine. The guy with the fancy glasses that reminds me of Mass Deuce is called Hound, Vice Admiral Hound. We have Vice Admiral Bluegrass, of course, the user of the Ride Fruit. We have Vice Admiral Doberman. We kind of knew him already, the guy with the swirly mustache. We have Vice Admiral Toes Up, who gets bonked by Broggy. Which is great. And the last two are Vice Admiral Urban, the guy who looks like a fishman with the bucket hat, and Vice Admiral Pomsky, who has some sort of otter fruit and some sort of shell-like mallet or hammer, because we saw him transform a little while back. So that's cool. We know that there's a Zoan amongst these guys. And then, of course, we have Vice Admiral Bluegrass with the Riot Fruit, of which she can use on the Mechanical Sea Kings, because that's how she and Doll get to Egghead. But what's super interesting is that Doll drops during a conversation between herself and Bluegrass that her commanding officer a little over 20 years ago was a giant. Then Bluegrass confirms that that indeed was Jaguar D. Saul. Now, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, this is interesting now, because forget all those other guys. They don't matter. I'm sorry, Bluegrass, but you don't matter. You're putting Doll on the map here, because now this gives her the same kind of relationship to Saul that Robin has, most likely. Because if Saul was her commanding officer, he most likely trained her. So that's a very interesting thing to think about. Both she and Robin know two different sides of Saul. Saul when he was in the system working for the man, and then Robin, of course, knows freedom fighter Saul after he saw the light. So when I tell you no other Vice Admiral here matters, no other Vice Admiral here matters. Man, oh man, I cannot wait to see more about Doll. I think Doll now is our premier female Marine other than Hibari and like Tashigi, because you got Hina, and Hina's been around, but it feels like Hina, especially in the post time skip, has taken a big backseat to Tashigi, because Tashigi is everywhere. She's even in the colors spread for this week, in which she's getting felt up by Reiju, which is wild. Also, hey, One Piece is on the cover of Jump this week. 5th Gear Luffy doing a big punch. But Reiju is caressing Tashigi as she seems to be drunk. And I think this is Uta's first actual color spread in the manga proper. So cool. And it's not promoting Film Red, or at least I don't think it is, even though all the women in this color spread are wearing red. So I don't know. Is Film Red on DVD or Blu-ray? DVD. Oh, showing that age there. But anyway. Yeah, Vice Admiral Doll is deemed as important now because, of course, she knows Saul. And this makes her stick out from all the rest of the ilk now. All the rest of them. Sorry, everyone else loses. Doll wins. I can't wait to see what that turns into. So, because of that, she's going to Elbaf. We're going to see if there's any Marine presence on Elbaf, it's going to be her. And we can't wait to see what she can actually do, because all we've seen her do so far is kick. She may have a dove power, she may not. We know that everybody in the Vice Admiral range can use hockey, so that's going to be something interesting to see. And then, of course, the whole Caribou subplot is resolved, and he basically spills the beans on what he knows. And if you've been paying attention, it's pretty obvious that he would tell Blackbeard of all he knows about the ancient weapons that he's come in contact with so far. So Shirahoshi being Poseidon, and of course the Pluton that's under Wano. So this could result in a run back to those two places, which would be very interesting because, of course, as many people have said, there's that whole prophecy of Straw Hat Luffy destroying Fishman Island. We're going to do a video about that because I think Fishman Island is very interesting. But yeah, we have the prophecies there. And then the borders of Wano need to be broken, which, of course, Blackbeard could easily do with the Tremor fruit. So there's going to be a run back to Wano eventually. Don't know if that's going to happen before Elbaf. It could. We can have a whole run back saga of things. That's not impossible. But it's just something to keep in mind. Based on Van Augur having his sights on Caribou, I'm willing to bet Van Augur has armament hockey and can infuse that into his bullets, or Rio. Because if what we see from the anime, if that's holding up and he can just bust Cracker's biscuit soldiers, then ain't no way he doesn't have armament hockey of some sort. It's impossible. He has to. Yeah, another interesting point is that Tosa, the big fat guy with the beard who's a vice admiral, is using something called Tosa Crunch, in which he has a armament hockey variant of finger pistol in which he's using all 10 of his fingers. So it's kind of like Six King gun, I guess, but ultimately weaker because he obviously hasn't mastered all the 6 powers. So I guess this is his own variation of that. At least that's what it seems to be. And from the looks of it, seeing as how he's just a normal guy who gets bonked on the head by a giant axe, he's just, well, a normal guy. He's not a devilfruit user or anything. So that's interesting. Interesting, very interesting. And Baraki and Dory are rounding everybody up. One thing to make note of is that Kuma is big. I know that's a stream of consciousness thought, but ooh wee, that boy large. Alice is too. These are some big lads here. Alice is a big lass. Look how big she is in comparison to this one giant mook. That's crazy, dog. I don't know. You don't really get the scope of how big other things are until you have like a very, very solid point of measurement to compare them to. Because, yeah, they're obviously not giants, but the fact that they're that big makes you think like, yeah, Buccaneers are probably some sort of half giant, because that's big. Not even Frankie is as big as Kuma. And Frankie's big. That's what I'm saying. There's a distinct difference between big humans and then your big humans, you know? So that's just interesting. I like that. I like the size comparison. I wonder what's up with Vice Admiral Urban. Like, what's his deal? Because we talked about this on the Roll Skull podcast. He does have a devilfruit, the guy with the bucket hat, because he was leaning forward, aiming at Bonnie when Saturn was holding her up in the air. So I don't know what the devilfruit is. It seems like some sort of gun fruit because he turned his bucket hat into a gun. So he's some sort of gun man. Perhaps he's like Baby 5, or I guess he's under Baby 5. So he's kind of like with Das Bones in that category of being lesser than the arms arm fruit, because you are only one weapon where the arms arm fruit is all the weapons. I guess that could be how it could work for him. But I don't know. He could be a cannon too. Now, here's another interesting thing that I was going to make a video about, and I've kind of touched on before. There are 2 types of awakening when it comes to Zoans. You have the proper awakening, and then you have the Demon Guard awakening, or Monster Point, or what Sengoku does, right? But seeing as how we've seen that there is a controlled variant of this awakening in which you don't have the Haragamo, the big sash of flame, right? When you don't have that, you're just sort of like this big ogre-ish creature. We've seen that transformation can be obtained naturally through Sengoku, and we've seen that transformation can be controlled even when it's not naturally attained, like with Chopper. He still has to take a drug in order to achieve Monster Point. But Sengoku, most likely, seeing as how he's in the same situation as Luffy, that is his awakening. But there must be something holding him back or whatever as to be the reason why he doesn't have a full awakening. But I say all this to say this. Saturn, as an awakened Zoan, has the ability to tap into that ogreish state. So that means that awakened Zoans can achieve the demon guard transformation, in which you are this big oaf, this big monster. But unlike with them, when they lose all control of their faculties, Saturn here is more aligned with Sengoku or Chopper, but his undoubtedly is more powerful because this is the ogre transformation under the control of someone who is fully awakened. That's what I think. So that means that possibly, and I know a lot of people don't like this, this is another bid for there possibly being a Gear 6, because Luffy could have another form that's a more monstrous state of Gear 5th, in which he turns into something like maybe akin to Nightmare Luffy or something like that. It's a possibility. Things get a little complicated because he has so many transformations already in Gear 5th, but I'm just leaving that open to being possible. And I'll say this, Vegapunk is dead, y'all. Now for real, because he's already in a critical state when Sanji picks him up, and then Kizaru Kamehamehas him through the chest. That is it. That is it. And why I say that is it, because we see at the end of the chapter what seems to be a dead man switch. It seems like this sort of array of terminals, which feels like I've seen this before. Like, I can't recall the manga because me and a friend were talking about this on the Digital Burrow, my Discord, like over a year ago. But there was a manga that Oda did before One Piece that was kind of like in that collection with Wanted and Monsters and that, in which he talks about I think it's a message to the future or something like that, and this type of scene happens. I want to say something like this happens, but yeah, what's going on here, I think, is a dead man switch that activates in the case of Vegapunk meeting his end. So when Vegapunk meets his end, he will now set this piece of technology off, and it will give his final message to the world, which immediately, as soon as I say that, I'm reminded of that one meme of the chocolate gorilla dissolving in the milk. This is my final message to the world. Goodbye. Very funny, very cool, but I wonder what he's going to say, because there's no break next week. That's a good point to make. Also, on the topic of forms, Luffy stops a rampaging ogre transformed Saturn and Kizaru both at once. And what's different about this that I did notice, the hat does not grow in proportion to his body. His pants and shoes do. I don't see his shirt, which is weird. But yeah, his pants and shoes do. I guess he lost his shirt, actually. But yeah, his pants and shoes and sash do, but the hat does not. The hat is at the base of his neck. Like, it's at the nape of his neck. It's very weird. I'm interested in this transformation because he's kind of doing like a gear third hand thing to hold Kizaru, and then he's just holding Saturn's head in his palm. So I wonder, is he gonna smack them together real hard, like how you smack action figures together? That'd be funny. But that's really interesting, and it's very interesting how Saturn looks more and more monstrous by the panel, which is why I'm saying this is kind of like Monster Point and like what Sengoku does, because it's so bestial, yet Saturn is in control. And Sanji even mentions that he's kind of given up all pretense of looking human, and there's venom on the tips of his weird hoof leg bits. So that's what I think. I think what he's doing here is a similar bit to what Chopper and Sengoku do. And I think when his legs are going everywhere and Luffy's dodging, I want to say that's paper arts, because it looks like that. Because why would he be able to do that, like move his stiff spiral legs around like tentacles, if it wasn't a form of him using paper arts? Or the thing, isn't that paper arts, the thing that Kumadori uses it, and then Boa Sandersonia does as well, in which they turn their hair into fingers and snakes respectively. So I think he's just using that on his limbs to make them all noodly. Also, Fukuro does it too. It was what was it, paper art slime and then something else. So this reminds me of that, and that's why they're going noodly everywhere in attempts to stab Luffy and Sanji. Sanji is catching all the dubs in the later half of this arc. Go Sanji. Proud of you, big dog. But yeah, bruh. Sanji gets kicked in the face, which is an L. And I guess by the dead man switch, yes indeedy, Vegapunk is dead. Because I don't know what else that would be. Why would a message like that activate if not for the confirmation of Vegapunk's death? Because there has to be some sort of life meter or vitality meter within Vegapunk's body, maybe in that apple. And if vital signs ever cease, the dead man switch goes off and Vegapunk perhaps spills the beans to the world. Another very interesting thing that fuels my Bonnie for Straw Hat agenda is that one of the final words that Vegapunk says is that please take good care of Bonnie. And he has regrets pulling the trigger of Bonnie being sort of like the ultimate anti-pacifista weapon so soon. But things are as they are. They be what they be. And once again, I'm looking at this shot of Akuma and the giant's hand. He's as big as the giant's palm. Does that not bother anybody else? I kept forgetting he's that big. He's huge. He's massive. He's massive. But anyway, I think in his final moments, especially with him talking to Luffy in this, saying, I was hoping Bonnie's command override would have remained a secret until she was a little older. She'll be a target for the rest of her life, so please look after her. That feels like a Robin-esque message, which makes me think this is a declaration of Bonnie becoming an apprentice of the Straw Hat crew. That's what I think. I think it's about time we stop the cap and just admit that this is highly likely, if not at least 99.7% gonna happen, because this is Vegapunk directly talking to Luffy, acting in the place of Kuma in this moment. And we've seen this before. We've seen the Frankie family wish Frankie off when Water 7 / Ennis Lobby happened. So yeah, I think this is her in to be a Straw Hat. Another interesting thing about Saturn is that I guess the abdomen part of him is now too on fire. So I don't know what that's about. But yeah, this is all fascinating. It's all fascinating. But with that being said, give me your thoughts. Good chapter. Kind of a in-betweeny chapter, but very good chapter. Very good chapter. Can't wait to see what the truth of the world is. So yes, give me your thoughts.